What is going on, Ape Nation? If you like watching Citadel fail, then this video may just be for you. So this is part 4 of the entire SEC versus Citadel lawsuit that's been going on. And these are actually the rebuttals. That's what I'm going to be playing for you today, is a clip from the hearing where we get to hear Citadel's rebuttals. They are about as ridiculous as they could possibly be and pretty much reinforces what we've all already known, which is that Citadel is a piece of spit and that there's some crooked cons, and yeah, what else can I say about that? But I'm going to get right into the clip. Before I do, though, please don't forget to smash that like button. If you are new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, tap that notification bell so that you never miss an upload, because I drop content just like this every single day.
Mr. Raw, I'm not sure you have time left, but we will give you an additional 2 minutes for rebuttal.
So 3 quick points. Let me start with Rule 611. You're right, Judge Walker. Regulation NMS did create the fragmentation. The protected quote stitches it back together, and it's important to enforce it. The language of the regulation is not anything about interference with fair and efficient trading. It says immediately and automatically executes an order. And you're right, Judge Rao. Immediate, of course, things take time to do, and it doesn't mean you're not doing them immediately. But when you introduce an intentional delay, it's no longer immediate. And when you tinker with the quote, it's no longer automatic. And
can you respond to Ms. Stetson's point that it's actually that there are intentional ways that that traders affect geographic latency? So it's not really qualitatively different to have something like the speed bump.
Sure. So 2 points. One, it's not true in practice. As we explained to page 372 of the JA, when we have a large order, Citadel sends it out to the exchanges simultaneously. Sure, there's a little bit of geographic latency as you go to the different exchanges, but the difference isn't large enough to allow anybody else to see what's happening on the other exchanges and react. So because we have a best execution obligation, we send it out everywhere at once. This is lengthening the delay, as Judge Santel said, and it allows everybody at IEX to see what's going on, and then they reprice. And the second thing is, it's just not a natural way to use language, Judge Rao. Sure, I tell my kids to immediately make their bed in the morning. They got to get out of bed and turn on the light. Nobody thinks they didn't comply with my instruction. But we sure do if they get up and read books or play with toys for a while. And in case you think there's any doubt about that, all you need to do is look at the adopting release with Rule 611. It says at page 534, it's not automated if you have any other type of intentional device that would delay the action. The commission read it exactly the way you do.
But Mr. Wall, it seems that Citadel pays for those devices on several other exchanges. So tell me if I have the facts wrong. I'm imagining Citadel and company X that are equidistant from an exchange. And so they send a communication to the exchange at the exact same moment. But Citadel has paid extra money to that exchange so that its receiver is a little closer than the competitor's receiver is. I'm imagining a room with computers in it, and there's like a box for Citadel and a box for the competitor. I'm sure this is probably vastly oversimplified, but Citadel pays the exchange money so that its receiver is in a better position, a better distance, a better location in that room than company X. Does that happen?
Judge Walker, I think maybe it did years and years ago, and it's a wonderful narrative. I grant you, like it's a great story that Ms. Stetson told, but no, in this day and age, it's not true.
Mr. Wall, and I, it's not. We had a case last month about Skybeams communicating between MAWA and the other things. I don't think there was any party in the case, and they disagreed about a lot of stuff. But none of them disagreed that the scenario I described happens where companies pay a little bit more money to an exchange like NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange to have their little box closer than everyone else's little box. It's very expensive real estate.
Yeah, no, Judge Walker, what I was going to say was some exchanges deal with this by having standard length cables, and the exchanges that don't have that, everybody pays to co-locate. So XTX, Virtue, Two Sigma, all the firms that Ms. Stetson named that are Citadel's competitors, they're all right there. There is no latency.
But aren't some?
I'm not saying they're not paying for it. I'm saying there's no competitive advantage that would give rise to latency arbitrage because everybody's got the same connectivity and everybody's got the same data feed. They may be paying.
There's no co-location at an exchange that's slightly better than another co-location at an exchange.
Judge Walker, I don't want to go that far. What I want to say is my understanding is that's not a common problem across the exchange when you talk to traders. And at a minimum, the commission didn't put on that kind of evidence. That's the interesting thing about the order. If that's true, what you're playing out and what Ms. Stetson said, it ought to be easy, right? We ought to come in with examples. Like there's facts on the ground, right? We could just show where the servers are and all the co-location stuff. The commission didn't do that. And it didn't even try to take actual trades and say, here's the latency arbitrage. It looked at aggregate statistics and said, see, those show that there's a lot of stuff going on when the signal is turning on. And this was the second point I was going to make in the rebuttal, which is none of that shows what's turning the signal on. So Ms. Stetson is right that at page 88 of the joint appendix, they say large orders don't turn it on. But when they say, as shown by the data above, all that they're pointing to on pages 87 and 88 is the stuff about there being a lot of trading when the signal is on. And we put in this actual order at page 372 of the joint appendix. We said, here's an actual order on behalf of retail investors. It triggered the signal just because it's a large order. Has nothing to do with arbitrage. And as I stand here today, having read everything in this case, I still don't understand what the commission's basic response is to the fact that this is the kind of trade that turns it on, because it makes sense. Right? You're taking a lot across a lot of exchanges. IEX is watching that. Of course, it's going to predict that the price is going to move. The signal is going to come on. By definition, it's probably a good sized trade or good number of orders, right? Because you need a whole lot of liquidity. This is a small player. It doesn't have a lot of liquidity. So then it says, oh, we have a lot of things going on in our shop when the signal comes on. Of course you do. It's exactly what you would expect. All of the markout data, the spread crossing, it's exactly what you would expect to see if large orders turn the signal on. And so I would just point back to the commission's order. And the third thing I would say, Judge Walker, to go to your colloquy with Ms. Stetson, that's not where the SEC started. Ms. Parisi said, look, it's commonplace to do this as a matter of routing. That's not true. Citadel sends these orders on behalf of retail investors to exchanges simultaneously when it's a large order. We explain that to the commission. There's nothing to the contrary in the record. Could we reroute and hold back orders and go to IEX first? We could, with the costs I explained earlier. Either higher costs or missed executions to retail investors who won't get the bulk of what they want because the IEX tail is wagging the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ dog. Now, Ms. Stetson takes it another direction. She says, oh, well, they're batching, they're bundling, and so it's evidence of latency arbitrage. And with all respect to Ms. Stetson, that's false. We told the commission it's false. I'm happy to supplementally brief it. We have best execution obligations. Citadel does not batch and try to time retail orders. It may fill some of them internally.
Mr. Wong, how does that work if 15% of the retail orders are coming in when the signal is on? I mean, how do you explain that?
Oh, so that part I think is fairly straightforward to address. Citadel handles more retail than anybody in the country. We have 40% of the retail orders on behalf of investors out there in the country, right? So we have a lot of retail, and we have some small orders and some one-offs, and sometimes IEX is good for that. It doesn't have a lot, but sometimes it has a little bit of kind of random things. So you send a lot of small orders there. But the large orders that we sent, that's the 15%. And what we found is that that 15% will turn the signal on. And as we explained, 99.3% of them in volume were large orders. Once our retail orders got large enough, they triggered the signal and it came on. And the commission's response to that at page 88 is just ipsy dixit. All it says is, oh, but look at our data. There's a lot going on when the signal comes on. Of course, there's a lot going on. We're sending large retail orders. That's the 15%. Others are sending more large orders and fewer small orders than Citadel. So that's why, even though it's only 15% for us, it creeps up to 24% of volume, 33% of orders. But it's all the same phenomenon. And just to close, Judge Walker, with where I was before, these retail orders, they're not like, there's nothing misleading about saying on behalf of retail investors. The example we gave at page 372 of the joint appendix is real. Maybe it's TD Ameritrade, maybe it's Schwab, maybe it's a pension fund, an institutional investor. They want a lot of shares. We don't hold that back and wait to take it to the market in some moment of arbitrage. We'd be violating best execution obligations if we did.
And how did the 15% show up in that fraction, that tiny fraction of a second?
Oh, Judge Rao, that is the key to the whole thing, right? Right there. They're not showing up when the signal is on. That's what the other side.
They're triggering the signal.
They're triggering the signal because IEX is sitting there and looking at these orders hit the other exchanges. and saying, wow, there's a spike in demand or a spike in supply. So the offer is going to go up or the bid is going to go down. And so they're turning on the signal. And then the order gets there having hit the speed bump. And they treat that order, once it hits, as the volume or the order that they're talking about hitting when the signal is on. So, of course, there's a lot hitting when the signal is on. They have a formula designed to detect price changes, and they can watch what's happening on other markets. It'd be sort of like, of course, there's a high correlation. Of course, you see crossing the spread. Of course, you see a lot of orders coming in. Of course, you see markout data showing that the price is running away from the liquidity.
So isn't this just a race between the technology of your client and the technology of IEX to go back and forth? I mean, isn't that ultimately in the market what's happening?
No, I don't think so. It might be a race between Citadel and 2 Sigma and XTX and Virtue and all the other high frequency traders that, as I said, Judge Walker, have the same connectivity and same data. But no other exchange is doing this, right? This is pretty novel. Exchanges are meant to be platforms. They're meant to facilitate trading. This is an exchange, the only one, right, that's doing this, that's reaching in and repricing the quotes themselves. And that's a sort of novel thing. And to get back to where I started, if you conclude on the first issue that they can have the delimit order, even though they haven't shown you real evidence of latency arbitrage, and even if they have, Judge Walker, they haven't looked at the costs. They have not looked at the costs from retail and the costs of routing. Still during the argument, no one has addressed the costs of these rerouting changes. But even if you conclude that, you can't have it be protected under Rule 611 for the reason that Judge Santel got at earlier. It just doesn't square with the language of the regulation, right? Protected quote is meant to stitch back that fragmentation that you were talking about, Judge Walker, and it does it by looking at the best bid and offer as a result of market forces. If they want to tinker with those, we don't think they should be allowed to. But what they can't do then is say, well, that should be treated the same as every other bid and offer that is actually the result of market forces. Let them compete in the open marketplace. If liquidity providers like it, they'll go there, and liquidity takers will have to go to get the liquidity. That's what Canada did when they did the same thing. No protected quotes. Let everybody have incentives to use the exchange, and then decide. Let the marketplace decide.
And Mr. Wall, I'll stop, Judge Rao.
Oh, no, Mr. Judge Walker, if you have another question, please go ahead.
I'll ask just one more. Then your last statement about just letting the market force, play out. Here, it seems to be that's what IEX wants to do, and it's you who is going to a federal agency and saying stop a private entity, IEX, from doing what they want to do. You're the one who's trying to kind of regulate your way into a market victory.
So, all respect, Judge Walker, I think we see it a little bit differently, right? Which is we don't want the exchanges, that's right, to interfere with the market forces themselves. Private parties in the marketplace through buying and selling should be determining prices, not the exchanges. The Exchange Act says they are meant to facilitate a fair and open market. Not that they're meant to pick winners and losers and reprice their quotes. But even if you think I'm wrong about that, I think clearly they're not pro-market force on the Rule 611 side. If they really believed this innovation story, they would do what CBOE did when it submitted its proposal. It didn't say its quotes should be protected. It said, let us do this. The commission disagreed. It flipped here for reasons it hasn't really addressed. But what IEX wants is the best of both worlds. It wants to be able to do the innovation, but then say that these quotes are protected, notwithstanding the regulatory text, so that it can lock liquidity takers into coming there, which drives up its revenues. Because let's be really clear, Judge Walker, IEX makes money in two ways. It makes money by having protected quotes at the best bid and offer, and by having more trading volume. This change hasn't driven up in the real world its actual executions. It's not actually helping the market, but it does drive up the amount of liquidity it has at what's called the NBBO, the best bidder offer. And that means more money by the millions for Ms. Stetson's client. If they want to do that in the marketplace, let them do it. But they should not be able to do it by virtue of Rule 611, either because the regulatory text is clear, or because they can't qualify for Kaiser because they flipped, or because at a minimum, even if the de minimis exception exists, they didn't analyze it here in this order with respect to displayed prices. At a minimum, this court should remand with vacature of that part of the order. And obviously, we have not discussed today the remedy, but I think clearly this is the standard. If you're going to remand, you should vacate.
Case is submitted.